Hello, I'm Maria Ressa. Welcome to Talk Thursday. With us today is Senator Franklin Drilon. He is the incoming Senate President. He's a chairperson of the ruling Liberal Party and now on his third term as a lawmaker after a successful bid for the Senate seat in 2010. As the incoming head of the Senate, Drilon identifies key measures for the 16th Congress, amending the charter of the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao to conform with the framework agreement on the Bangsamoro, fixing fiscal incentives, and the mining law, among other important pending legislation. He joins us today to talk about the challenges he faces. Thank you for coming, Senator.
Thank you, Maria, for inviting me here. First time I'm in your beautiful headquarters and your beautiful studio. So this is where all I read emanates from.
Thank you. Well, you have been a key player for a very long time. I mean, like, when you pull out of Philippine democracy, what are the lessons that we've learned as we've evolved?
The lesson that I have learned that will stick to my mind is that a strong, honest, and credible leadership can bring this country to where it wants to go. We have a president today who is sincere, who does not compromise his principles, and he has shown that he could carry through the reforms that he promised. Mind you, Maria, he is not yet finished. There are still a lot of things to do.
3 years left. And when you've been in government since 1986, since the Cory administration. If this is the main lesson that you've learned, how would you then describe our democracy today?
It's not perfect, but for all the warts that we have, I think we fare better than many of the countries around us. There are imperfections. We could do a lot of things better, but we're a difficult country to govern. That one, I must admit, I have seen how diverse opinions can hobble us. But that's why I said a credible leadership who can stand the pressure, who can stand his ground without compromises, is really what we need to be able to move us forward.
In your view, has this democracy matured?
In my view, has this democracy matured? Yes, to a great extent. At least when, the years when, during Cory's time, if they disagreed with the administration, they announced a coup. So
it's true. Seven coup attempts in the first.
But yes, today we go through the process. The impeachment of the Chief Justice showed our maturity as a people. We were able to do it.
Yes. Challenges now in this point in time.
I must admit that the criticism of a non-inclusive growth must be addressed. Maria, we have the agriculture sector, for example, would have among the largest constituency in terms of our workforce.
Yes.
And yet the agricultural workers are one of the most underpaid, and therefore you see the poverty in the countryside. This is a challenge that we must face, and therefore we must be able to, in the Senate, craft policies that will create jobs, that will result and help in an inclusive growth, meaning that we must improve our investment environment.
Yes.
We must examine closely certain policies which people feel would be hindrances to our ability to attract investments and create jobs.
As the incoming head of the Senate now, I mean, you were the campaign manager of LP. That you cobbled together a coalition, the LP, the NPC, and the NP, and the LP. Will this be able to pass the legislation? Do you still expect them to act together as a bloc?
Yes, we expect the coalition to hold under the leadership of the president. The result of the election, Maria, indicates the mandate of our people, that they want these reforms to continue. And for all the impressions created on the senators, I believe that we are a responsible lot. We know that we have a responsibility to those who sent us to these positions. And I would like to think that at the end of the day, we, notwithstanding our differences, we would consider the national interest to be their primordial guide.
It's interesting, though, you also focused on the president first and foremost. I mean, the criticism of Philippine democracy has always been that we're so personality-centric that our institutions aren't strong enough.
That's right. I cannot totally disagree with that.
Yeah.
Political parties in our country usually depend on the personality and is personality-oriented. Notwithstanding our effort in the Liberal Party to go on the level of a platform-oriented party, we have to admit that many times, personality-oriented politics takes the day.
Do you see us evolving out of this anytime soon?
I will not give up, but anytime soon, I don't think so.
Not in our lifetime,
Yeah.
God, I hope. So you've worked under the two Aquinos. How would you compare them? Cory
How would I
and her
compare
son,
them? Yes,
Noy.
Cory, both of them have very strong principles of integrity, principle that they put the country above self. I have seen that. I have seen it at close range, and you wouldn't hear them or even a hint that if they do something, it's because of a personal agenda.
Or that corruption, for example, that they're both seen as incorruptible.
That's correct. And therefore, they have the ability to make decisions, even if the decisions would, result in some disappointment among the supporters. Maria, when you decide, you divide.
Yes, absolutely. And
So
you must, right? If
You
you're
must
a leader.
decide.
Yeah.
And therefore, you divide. It is a question of how well the majority would receive that decision as being consistent with good governance, with honesty, with integrity. And I would like to think that the first half of this administration, people saw that indeed here is a president who is sincere in pushing an agenda for the good of the country. And this is reflected if you look at the surveys of mid-term surveys of the past 5 presidents. This president would have the highest positive rating. The previous administration on a mid-term survey had a negative 3.
Yes.
So this indicates the confidence of the people in him, and that gives him the strength and the political base to be able to institute the reforms that is needed.
No, there's no doubt a 7.8% growth rate in the first quarter shows tremendous potential. You talked about inclusive growth. You talked about this president. Let me go back to his mom, because that's also fascinating. 2 presidents, from the same family. But how is he different from his mother?
How is he different from his mother? Well, of course, he being magkaiba in the sense that he would be more engaging.
More engaging than interesting.
On a
Personal level.
Personal level.
Yes.
The mother would be more reserved. But basically, to me, the common denominator is their sincerity to do well. That country above self. Their blinding adherence to good governance. So, to me, these are the qualities that we need. Because otherwise, you'll be having compromises all over the place, as we have seen in the past.
And what lessons should we have learned from that? People say compromises are good.
I will not dispute that, but you only compromise up to a certain extent.
Yes.
The sin tax and the RH law were the most difficult reforms that were undertaken in the past year, in recent memory. I should know because I was there. And the pressure groups, the lobby, were so tremendous that a leader of lesser belief or strength would have caved in. I have seen that in the past, and I see the difference today.
So now we're halfway through. this administration. You're coming in as Senate President. What are the priority legislative measures you want to make sure you get through?
But obviously, we must address this perception, not only perception, but probably reality, of a non-inclusive growth. You still have a high unemployment ratio. The point is, I think we have successfully laid the foundation, and we continue to do so. For example, there is a clamor for constitutional change. The constitutional change is because of what is perceived to be certain defects or difficulties, I would say, in the investment environment that we have because of the restrictions. Well, we have a political leader who believes that we can do it without constitutional amendment, that the constitutional amendment can only divert our attention, that it can create instability while we are discussing it. And therefore, given that environment that we operate in, one of the things that we will do for the next 3 years is look at our laws. For example, the negative list insofar as foreign investment is concerned.
Yes.
Certain areas where foreign investment cannot come in, although not prohibited in the Constitution. So we must be able to review that. The rationalization of the fiscal incentive, the rationalization of the mining law.
Yes.
The other areas which can which can project a policy of liberalization and attraction of investors in order that we can create more jobs. The key, Maria, to me is creation of more jobs in order that it can be an inclusive growth. And we have to face the reality that agriculture, to agriculture, you see a substantive portion of our workforce, and yet you find their incomes to be
Yes.
below what it should be.
It's interesting to hear you say this because these are similar things that the cabinet members are also saying. I mean, these seem at least aligned. What about Bangsamoro, the organic?
We will support fully the peace process. One of the priorities that we will have to tackle is once the peace agreement is completed, we must immediately buckle down to work in order that we can amend the Organic Act to conform with the peace agreement. There are no, and therefore, my strong suggestion is that while this is ongoing, the executive branch should engage Congress, because at the end of the day, Congress will have to pass the law which will amend the Organic Act. And if there is divergence of opinion, then we'll have problems in the legislature. So,
well, people have reacted to 75% of the taxes and resources, certain resources going to the Bangsamoro.
Yes,
I mean,
well, yes, I do not have the details.
Okay.
Certainly, these are among the issues that must be explained.
Okay.
And this is precisely what this validates what I'm saying, Risa, Maria. Before, it would be ideal if Congress can be briefed or can be involved. I'm sorry, can be involved. I must say though that Secretary. The Secretary for the peace process has been involving us, but we are not familiar. We are not being briefed. We have not been briefed of certain details, like this one, the wealth sharing, very critical.
yes.
Whatever it is, though. We can assure our people in Mindanao that we are fully supportive of the peace process, and we can assure them that once this is completed, we will do our share in the legislature.
You're coming in also, I'm shifting a little bit, you're coming in to take leadership of the Senate at a time when the senators themselves are being questioned, the pork barrel funds. Should the Senate investigate itself? I mean, would you push for something like that?
I am not comfortable with the Senate investigating itself. We will have a clear conflict of interest if we conduct our own investigation. Whatever the result of our investigation will be, people will not believe. They'll say this is an old boys club, whatever.
Yes.
Even. But remember, at this stage, these are all allegations in media.
Yes.
My position, Maria, is let the NBI, let the Ombudsman finish the investigation. At that point, after they finish the investigation, we decide whether to conduct our own investigation for any purpose that we may find appropriate. But I do not want a parallel investigation.
Isn't there something though where an institution also polices its own ranks? For example, a news group, right? If we were told that somebody in our group has done anything wrong, we would also check and see to make sure that the reputation of the organization is intact.
Yes, the reputation of the Senate as an institution is a collective responsibility.
Is there an ethics committee or something that would look into these charges?
No, I would not want the ethics committee to look at it at this time.
I see. At this time.
I am not saying that we should never look at it. What I'm just saying is allow an independent agency, independent of the Senate, to look into this, to gather the evidence, and after they're finished, then we decide what to do.
I see. So you want to see first whether there's actually any merit to the charges.
That's correct. That's
Okay.
correct. I think that's fair. That's fair because we want as the president said, he wants to go to the bottom. It's
Yes.
fine. We support him.
Senator Santiago, though, proposed having the senator's name take a leave of absence. Is that something that...
That depends on, there is no rule in the Senate on that. We must not forget that, yes, we are public officials, we have our own mandate, and therefore we cannot impose on the senators. It's
Yes.
addressed to their own discretion.
To each of them.
To each of them.
What is the difference? Sorry, please continue.
And that's why I said, let the independent investigating agencies do their job without interference from us.
Can you, if you can compare the United States, in the U.S. lobbying groups are actually part of the system, and what we would consider pork barrel as part of what a lawmaker is part of the way they dispense power. What is the difference between pork barrel, the way it's practiced here in the Philippines, and say the funds that are given to practicing lawmakers in Western countries?
First of all, pork barrel, remember, Maria, is of Western origin.
Okay.
Right?
Yes, yes.
They originated it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
That's why, but again, it doesn't have the same negative connotation that we have.
Because of the implementation aspect. In other words, maybe they have higher standards of accountability, and therefore these congressional initiatives or congressional insertions are executed in a manner that raises no doubts that really it is for the purpose which was intended. But just per se, an initiative on the part of a member of the U.S. Congress is a daily happening in their political life in Washington. But I would repeat, no controversy has erupted in terms of the use of these congressional initiatives. But not only in the U.S. In any parliamentary democracy, you have lobbyists, and then you have privileges. You have the members of the legislative branch are given that prerogative of being able to identify projects for their constituents, and that's all that it is. Except that in our case, the matter of execution is always raised an issue. That is why there are charges of corruption.
Well, what's interesting now is also this administration has focused attention on the lawmakers, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, the SAL-N. What does it feel like to be a lawmaker today when there is actually greater focus on your own behavior and and standards that have been set, for example, in the SALN?
Well, in my case, I've always been conscious that I live in a fishbowl, and I have always tried to the best of my ability to conform to what is required, and therefore, I didn't see, insofar as where I come from, the same thing that I've been doing over the years.
Yes.
Just for example, just to focus on this pork barrel, one of my favorite projects is to join the Barrio School program of the Federation of Filipino-Chinese Chamber of Commerce. I give them a good portion of my pork barrel. We build schools at half the price. I've already built 1,500 or so classrooms. So, all these issues about the pork barrels, to me, as I said, the issue goes back to the proper implementation of what is otherwise a good project.
So, I guess, again, I go back, like having the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court impeached because of his SALN now puts every single public official who has to file a SALN, right?
Yes. Now
Is it changed? Has it changed behavior?
Oh, certainly. You have to look at it 10 times and say, is this correct? So you ask people, tama, or you ask your staff or your accountants, tama ba ito, insofar as the SALN is concerned?
Were you surprised when the Senate voted? Because again, when we were watching the impeachment trial, part of this was all said informally, but the country's endemically corrupt. The standards are a little bit lower. That it's a little bit like the pot calling the kettle black. Is this true? And what's changed now?
More consciousness that whatever you do today, you can be made to answer for it at some time in the future. You don't know when.
Your priorities now in this Senate?
Well, principally, many of them are economic bills.
You talked about that, more inclusive economic growth.
On the judiciary, we want to address a few items which we believe can help restore our people's confidence in our justice system and improve our investment climate also in the process. For example, the length of time it takes for the courts to decide cases is something that we have been harping on for the last several years, and yet
it can go up to a decade, I think, right? That's what you're saying. Yeah.
And there must be a deliberate, conscious effort. Of course, the lead player here is the judiciary, and we can only play supporting cast.
Yes.
There are 2,600 or so cases pending in the Sandigan Bayan. It takes years. So, this creates the perception that there are two kinds of justice in the country, one for the rich and one for the poor, which is bad for our democracy, which is bad for our investment climate.
I have some questions from
Sure.
social media coming in. From @DariB_Raul. Have you seen obvious effects of Pinoy's inclusive growth projects on our small and medium enterprises?
I'll be speculating if I answer that. I really don't have personal knowledge of that, but certainly there has been improvements in our economy. Our economy has expanded faster than many of our neighbors, and the mere expansion of our economy would certainly benefit the small and medium scale enterprises.
The Asia Pacific, the small and medium scale enterprises, they're saying that up to we should get 90% of our economy driven by small and medium.
Because 90% of our business enterprises are small and medium scale. So
Yes.
So that's the
idea.
yes.
The expose. So this is from @KKoo on Twitter. What do you propose to do about the expose of senators and congressmen regarding the pork barrel PDF?
I think PDF.
Your stand. Yes, we
yeah.
actually have answered that. What things could be a missed opportunity if not addressed now?
What can be missed opportunities if not addressed now? We should not miss the opportunity of having a final peace agreement in Mindanao. It's difficult to bring it back to this environment if
this is a key moment. Yes.
What
about FOI?
Well, Maria, we passed the FOI in the Senate.
Yes, you have.
So
that's
not an issue for us.
Back to that.
Yeah, that's not an issue for us. And I see no reason why we shouldn't pass it again.
And the cybercrime, which is now at the Supreme Court.
Well, yeah, I must admit I was part of the Senate that approved that. Um, Maybe it's time to take a second look, given the very loud protest that we heard. Yes, we should review it and see how we can address many of the concerns that were raised.
Fantastic. Can I ask you, in terms of
Go ahead.
the organization, any organization is normally only as good as the weaknesses of its leader.
Yes, yes.
You've spoken about the good points of President Aquino. What are his weaknesses that the people he works with should be looking out for?
What are his weaknesses?
And
I'm
part
sure
of your
there are.
Yes,
I am sure there
yes.
are.
Also, part of your job will be actually having oversight over the executive branch, correct?
I'm sure there are. Nobody is perfect. Let me think about it, because in my interaction with him, I can't. Let me give it some thought, Maria. Honestly, that question I have it has not crossed my mind. Maybe I'm too near.
Well, that's in that way it's good. So
yeah.
my last question, and thank you again for this time, is that your final prognosis moving forward. It's a good time right now.
Yes.
What are your thoughts moving ahead?
Maria, we have gone through this boom and bust cycle. I
Frustrating.
see an opportunity in the next 2 years to solidify the gains of the past. Because let's face it, starting 1 year before the next election in 2016, you just have to cross your fingers. I don't think that much will be achieved in terms of policy reforms. I would like to seize this opportunity with the strong leadership, strong credible leadership of the President, to finally institutionalize the reforms that he has started, so that after he is gone in 2016, whoever comes in will, even if the agenda is different, could not do much, because we have institutionalized what we believe should be there.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
We've been speaking with Senator Franklin Drilon. He is the incoming Senate President, about his plans for the 16th Congress, his views about the Philippine democracy, and the road ahead. I'm Maria Ressa. Thank you for watching Talk Thursday.